Welcome to Inspirational Journeys, everyone. My name is Ann Harrison Barnes, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Cynthia MacGregor, who's an author and the host of the Crimson Cloak Publishing Radio Show. Welcome to the show, Cyn, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Call me Cyn for short. It's easier to pronounce, too.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me to introduce myself? Let me do that.
Right.
Hi, I'm Cynthia MacGregor, and I mostly answer to Cyn. I'm a writer. I'm an editor. I do freelance writing, freelance editing for clients ranging from people who want blog posts written or edited to people who want whole books ghostwritten or edited. I write for a local magazine once a month, and I write books. I have had over 100 books published, and a bunch of them have been published by Crimson Cloak Publishing, which is our connection. Author, and I'm a Crimson Cloak author, and so that's our connection. I live in South Florida with my significant other, and we've been together almost 13, it'll be 13 years next month. And what else would you like to know about me?
That's pretty much, well, okay, so what inspired you to be a writer?
Well, I've been writing ever since I was old enough to spell C-A-T, cat. Literally, I mean, 6 years old, I was writing stories and poems and whatever, I've just always written. So I don't know what inspired me. I think it's just a God-given talent.
There you go. There you go. So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. As far as editing, I guess that started when I was doing temporary office work back in 1960 something, and one of the offices where I was working asked me if I would be able to proofread a document, and I said yes, I believed I could. I didn't know the proper proofreader's marks, but I sure knew an error when I saw one. I was good with grammar, spelling, and punctuation. So they basically wanted, copy editing rather than content editing. And so I took the document and either proofread it or edited it, depending on which way you want to look at it. And I realized at that point that, hey, I have another talent. And I turned the document back into them and thought, well, this is interesting. That was enjoyable work, and I should continue with that. And then back in, I can't think what year it was now, but a publisher for whom I was writing asked me if I would like to edit a magazine for her, and I said yes, I would. And so she put me to editing a magazine for her, and that was well, I guess that wasn't the start of my editing. I take it back. I edited a couple of little newspapers for that, and then I edited the magazine for her, and then it just grew exponentially from there. A rival publisher of hers hired me away from her. He said, if you're good enough for her, you're good enough for me. I have great respect for her business acumen, and so come work for me. And I did. And all of this was freelance. I was never on staff in the office 9 to 5 kind of thing. I was always working at home and just turning in my completed work. Now, this was there were before there were computerized editing and writing. So I would have to literally pick up the package of manuscripts at the office and then return it to the office, but I would do the actual work at home. So then I just got into editing books, and it just grew from there like Topsy. And as far as the book writing, in 1992, I had an idea. Well, the publisher that I was editing for sometimes did one-shot magazines. They had done one on John Lennon when he died, and I had an idea for a one-shot magazine for parents of small kids who would be at a loss for what to do over the school recess. Christmas recess was then coming up, and it was too late to get the magazine put together for Christmas recess, but I thought we could get it out in time for Easter recess. So I proposed the magazine to the publisher, and he thought about it. He considered it, but ultimately he turned the idea down. But I thought it was too good an idea to let go of, and so when he turned the idea down, and I didn't want to take it to some other publisher that I didn't have a relationship with, because then they would get one of their own editors to edit it, and I would lose out on the income. So I said, well, maybe I'll do it as a book. And at the time, there were not the plethora of activity books around that there are today. And so I wrote it as Mommy, There's Nothing to Do, and submitted it to 3 or 5 publishers, and one of the major publishers in New York grabbed it. So that was my first book. And that too just took off and grew from there. And so that was the start of my book writing. And as I say, I've had over 100 books published since then. And I think I've talked enough for now. It's your turn. Ask me a question.
I was going to ask you, and before I do, if you guys saw me moving around, I had to plug the computer in while she was talking. So
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said if people saw me moving away from the video for a second, I had to put my computer on the charger. That's what I was doing. Anyway, so tell me about editing back in the day before a lot of people used computers. Did you have to rewrite some of the manuscript, or how did you edit back in those days?
Well, I edited with a red pen, and I wrote, I had to retype. Yes, I did.
Wow. And I bet it was harder even for writers to self-edit back then.
Well, it was a pain in the darn ear.
I can believe it. I can believe it.
It's much easier now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm thinking here. Tell me what inspired the CCP radio show, the Crimson Cloak Publishing radio show.
Oh, well, actually, that was Carly started it before I came on board. I don't know what inspired it because she never shared that with me. I just know that Carly was the host and producer originally, and one Tuesday when she was on, I had volunteered. I had said, Carly, I've had a TV show of my own in the past, and if you ever need me to fill in for you on the radio show, I'll be happy to. And sure enough, one Tuesday, she was unable to do the show. She had a conflict of some sort, and she said, "Sin, would you take over?" And I said, "Sure." And then that summer, when she had her rugrats home from school, and they couldn't be quiet for an hour and let her be, she asked me if I would take it over for the summer. And I said, "Sure." So I took it over for the summer. Then she was having trouble getting guests, and I had no trouble getting guests. So eventually she asked me if I would take over the show altogether. And I said, "Sure, I'd love to." So I became the new host and producer of the show, and I'm still there. And I still don't have any trouble getting guests. But I don't
Wow.
know what the genesis was of the show. She never shared that with me.
Wow. Okay. I may have to get her on the podcast and ask her about that.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if she'd be up for it, but
I've been trying to get her as a guest on the CCP podcast for ages, and she keeps avoiding. So I don't know if she'd come on your podcast either, but good luck trying.
I'll ask her. Wouldn't hurt to ask.
The worst she can say is no.
Wow. So I have a question because I was reading Don't Quit While You're Ahead. And this question kind of, I was curious about, do you still do the children's albums?
No. I did those children's albums some years back, and I still have some copies of them lying around, but I'm not producing anymore or creating anymore or really pushing them. I have them, and if I find a way to sell them, I will, but I'm not actively involved in them now. That came about because I had the idea for these songs, and I had a friend, she's passed now, but I had a friend, Carolyn, who had a good singing voice, and I had a friend, David, who uh, played music and was an engineer, audio engineer and video engineer. And I have a friend, Shirley, who plays keyboard, and I got them all together, and Shirley played keyboard while Carolyn sang, while David recorded the songs, and we made 5 albums. We Sing Out and Learn, Sing Out About Manners, and Sing Out for Safety, and Drifting to Dreamland Volume 1 and Drifting to Dreamland Volume 2. And they were not a big success, I must admit. They never were properly exposed, I think. I think they could have been a success if they had the right marketing, but I am not a marketing genius, nor do I have unlimited funds to promote things, advertise things. So they kind of didn't go anywhere.
I can understand being on a budget, trust me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to share a story, and I know I emailed you about this, but I felt like sharing this about Don't Quit While You're Ahead because I feel like it was important for me. That's the book. I like the Wisdom from a Happy Woman book too, and I'm still working on that. But what resonated with me in Don't Quit While You're Ahead, I was reading the first 3 chapters, and then the Holy Spirit said, you can do better with your book. Because I had a full-length novel that's already published, but then I started thinking about it. I need to edit that. So that's what got me started on that role. And I'm glad that you sent that to me because I think that was the catalyst for me starting, reworking this project.
Good. I'm glad I could help.
It's kind of interesting how that works out sometimes.
And how do you edit? I mean, physically, being not sighted, how do you edit?
Okay, I have a screen reader called JAWS for Windows, and I use a Braille display, as I was telling you before. So sometimes I will listen with JAWS. I'll use my arrow keys and listen with JAWS. And if there's something I'm not sure of, I will look at it with the Braille display. Um, I'll use speech and Braille in conjunction with each other. If I need to make changes, I'll make changes that way. If I need to add some things, I'll add some things to the chapters to make it a lot better. So that's how I do that. That's how I do the editing.
Aha.
Right, and then when I'm self-publishing, I'll have another friend look at it and run it through Pro Writing Aid because I have trouble. Because you know how if you run it through an editing tool, the errors are color coded,
Yeah.
and that's a bit difficult for me. I can read the report with the screen reader version, but still, the errors are color coded, so that's why I don't use those tools.
Do you use the Dragon software?
No. Mm-mm. Now I have done dictation on my phone through VoiceOver, and they say it's Siri, but I think the dictation part is different from Siri. It's slightly different. I do use that sometimes when I'm writing on the go in my notes app, but no, I don't use Dragon Naturally Speaking.
How do you get the notes from oh God, look at me. I'm interviewing you. I'm supposed to be letting you interview me.
That's okay. That's okay. I was going to ask you if you had any questions. That's okay, because people need to, people know if they listen to me. That's okay. You've got questions. It's a natural conversation. Don't worry about it. What I do is I email the notes over from my phone. I email them to myself, and then I copy and paste into the Word document.
That
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was thinking you were going to say something. That's why I waited. So tell me about your writing process. Do you have to do a lot of research when you write your nonfiction?
Mostly not a lot. Some, but mostly not a lot. Mostly I try to write about either things that I already know about that are not foreign to me, or things with subjects where I can interview people rather than looking it up on the web. But the web certainly is a great convenience. I can remember back in the late 90s when I would have to lug home an armful of library books to do research. And now I don't have to lug an armful of library books home anymore. Now I can just go tippity tap on the keys and bring up whatever I need thanks to, Google and ask.com and Wikipedia and other sources like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. It makes it a whole lot easier.
Yes, it does.
Because I remember going to school in the 80s and 90s and having to look home library books or looking in an encyclopedia myself. Oh, so the case studies, and I loved how you use case studies and don't quit while you're ahead. So were those people that you actually interviewed?
People that I interviewed, not necessarily in person. Some of them were people who answered queries that I put online in various places. Some were people I knew, yes, some were, but some were people whom I would put out a query on, depending on where I had the availability. One good source for me is called HARO, that's spelled HARO, and it stands for Help a Reporter Out. And you can put a query on HARO and it's free, and people answer. So I could put a query about a topic that I was writing a book on and ask for people to respond, and they did. and that was one good source. And as you said, people I know. And then sometimes I would put queries in other places, such as, for example, worldwide recipes, which is kind of offbeat for some of the book topics that I wrote on. But hey, it's free. There's a section called Bulletin Board where you can post a notice on anything except goods or services for sale. So I posted queries there. And I can't think offhand where else, but there were other places too where I posted queries and got answers. So yes, some of them were people I knew, and some of them were strangers. Most of them I didn't interview in person or even on the phone. Most of the answers came by email. A few came by phone. More came by email.
Wow, okay.
Next.
Go ahead. Wow, okay. So that's how that worked. And it also shows examples of what you're talking about in the book. Now, for your Wisdom from a Happy Woman series, did you have to do any research for those essays, or were those just straight from your heart?
Straight from my heart, sweetie. Straight from my heart.
I hear you. I hear you.
There's a book 3 and a book 4 too. Now that Carly is cutting back on what she's publishing, I don't know what the fate is of book 3 and book 4. 1 and 2 are both out, of course. And just today I got a list of books she's canceling the contract on, and Wisdom 3 and 4 were not on the list. So I hope that she's still planning to publish them sometime in the future, but I don't know when. Meanwhile, I'm compiling tidbits of wisdom for a book I want to call Wisdom Nuggets. And we'll see where that goes.
If she can't publish them, have you ever thought about self-publishing those?
Well, I have an arrangement with a self-publishing company that used to be regular publisher, not a self-publisher. And then when the present owner took it over from the previous owner, he turned it into a self-publishing company. And he still treats me like he's not a self-publisher. In other words, he doesn't charge me. So I have had some books published by him. And if I can't get Carly to publish Wisdom 3 and Wisdom 4 and Wisdom Nuggets, I might take it over to this other company and let them publish it. Because, as I say, they would not charge me. I would have to pay for every copy of the book that I buy, but I have to do that with Carly also.
But I'm sure you get an author discount, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's the same thing I would have to do whether I self-published. But I would just, I'm glad he doesn't charge you, because if you have to pay to get your book published, that's not a good thing.
Well, that's what self-publishing involves, paying to get your book published.
You can self-publish on for Ingram Spark you have to pay for the uploads, but Lulu, some of them you don't, like Lulu, you don't have to pay for uploading a book, and you don't have to pay for it on Amazon and Smashwords.
Yeah,
but some of these print-on-demand companies will give you a run for your money.
Well, I'd probably rather go with this other company, but I'll keep in mind, I know that what you're saying is true, and I'll keep it in mind as a backup.
Yeah, I'm just giving you fair warning, because I've made mistakes like that. I can tell you from personal experience. But I won't go into that horror story now. Trust me, that would not be a good topic for discussion. other than Wisdom 3, Wisdom 4, and Wisdom Nuggets, do you have any other books that you've got in the works?
Well, I'm not I shouldn't say that. Let me rephrase that. I'm not currently working on anything that's strictly my own because I don't have the time. I'm busy with client work. I just finished last weekend a book that I ghost wrote for a client. And since it's ghostwriting and has to be confidential, I'll say that it was a motivational book, and that's really all that I can say about it. Um, I am working on a book that I'm editing for one client, and I'm working on a book that I'm writing for another client where he will have top billing and I will have second billing, but really I'm doing all the writing. But it's his story. It's a true story, and so he gets top billing and I get second billing, and I'm working on that, and I'm expecting any day now to get in a book for copy editing that I've already done major content editing on, but at the time the author asked me not to copy edit because he knew he was going to be continuing to make major changes, and it was silly for me to copy edit before the book was in its final iteration. So I expect to get that back for copy editing literally any day. So I really don't have time to do any writing for myself right now, nor do I have any ideas, but I have a number of books, including, and this one's not with Crimson Cloak, this one's with Acute by Design, but I have a book already out with Acute by Design called Heartfelt the Special Reindeer. It's a Christmas story, and it came out a few years ago, and I've written a follow-on called The Boy Who Didn't Believe in Santa, and it's a Heartfelt the Special Reindeer book, and that's coming out this fall. And I have a book coming out this fall called what's it called? Activities to Engage Your Elder Parents. And I have a book coming out sometime, I don't know exactly when, called Jamal Goes to the Hospital. It's meant to reassure kids who have to go to the hospital. It's a picture book. And I'm not sure, those are all with Acute by Design. I'm not sure at this point what Carly at Crimson Cloak is going to be publishing of mine next or when, because everything's in a bit of turmoil with her cutting back on her titles. So I'm not sure things stand with Crimson Cloak. And I don't have anything coming out anywhere else at the moment.
Okay. So now in your nonfiction and your children's fiction, one thing I was going to ask you, do you plan those ahead of time, or did you, or did you, as they say, pants those books?
No, I don't pants those. I plot those.
Oh, okay.
But I'll tell you something, even though I plot them, there's a little bit of pantsing involved because no matter how much I plot them, I always find myself saying, oh, wouldn't it be neat if, and then I wind up adding something to the story or changing something in the story. So it's mostly plotting with a little bit of pantsing added.
You kind of what I call a plantser, a pantser with a plan. Because I do that. I don't do a lot of major plotting. I just do my, get a foundation for what the story is going to be about, and then I'll pants a lot of it myself. So
most of my nonfiction is pantsed.
Yeah.
I'll write a basic outline of, not literally an outline, but notes, as to what I want to hit on in the manuscript, and then I enhance it from there.
Oh, okay. So before we close out, I've got this one question that you wanted me to ask, a fun question. So who are your heroes and why?
Oh, I've had two heroes in my life. The first is my mother. She's gone now, but as I was growing up, I didn't know the demons that beset her, but she was agoraphobic, and um, she, she had anxiety attacks, and she just fought through it all so bravely that I never knew. She was also acrophobic, that's fear of heights, and she never admitted it to me until I was well into my 20s or 30s, I'm not sure, when she finally came out to me about her fears and her phobias, and it was a shock to me because she'd hidden it so well, and she just was so brave that she's one of my heroes. And the other is Jimmy Carter, because my Lord, Jimmy Carter, unlike the other presidents, isn't out glorifying himself. The other ex-presidents, I should say, isn't out glorifying himself. He's out building houses for the poor. He's still hammering nails in his 90s. God bless.
I know. I met him when I was like in middle. I met him at a festival in Plains, and I know he's an author too.
Yes.
Because I remember there was this one novel I read that he wrote about the Revolutionary War, and then he wrote this one book about his mother, which I thought was good, and I'm sure he's writing more if he has time. So, where can people find you online?
www.Cynthia, Cynthia MacGregor, MacGregor.com. I am on Facebook, but there are a couple of other Cynthia MacGregors on Facebook also. So if you try and find me there, you might find the wrong one. But if you go to my website, www.cynthiamacgregor.com, that's me.
Okay. Now, do you have any other questions for me before we close out?
No, I don't have any other questions. Well, I guess I do. When will this show be available?
Once we get done and the recording is converted, I'll start uploading it to YouTube and to Anchor. And then what I'll do is I'll also send you the audio and the video files. And I've got a blog post that I've already put together with your information, and I'll put those links in it. Do you want me to send you the blog post, or do you just want me to send you the link to it on my blog?
Oh, send me the blog post if you wouldn't mind.
Oh no, that's fine. I can do either or. I can do both if you want me to.
Okay.
That's up to you, but I'm going to put those in the blog post, and I'm also going to tweet out the links too. Are you on Twitter?
On what, on Twitter? No, I'm not on Twitter.
Okay, I didn't think so. I just wanted to double check, but I am going to tweet that out, and I'm going to actually tag at Crimson Cloak Publishing on Twitter as well, because that way they can Carly can see it too, because I told her you'd be on the show.
Good. Now, you asked me to be ready with a Bible quote and a prayer. Which
do you have a favorite Bible verse?
Well, one of my favorites is, I shall lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over you, over us all, will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forever. And then did you want me to close with a prayer? Yes?
Right, but first I wanted to say thank you for sharing that verse. I loved it. Now, would you mind closing us out in prayer?
I wouldn't mind at all. Creator and source, we ask your blessings for all who are listening to and watching this show today and for its host. May they all experience your bounty of grace in their lives. May their work fulfill them. May their finances improve exponentially. May they enjoy robust good health. And may they derive satisfaction from their experiences with friends, family, encounters with others in this world, and all that happens as they go about their day-to-day lives. God, we especially pray for our nation, which is in a terrible turmoil presently.
Yes, Lord.
There's so much divisiveness and rancor on both sides of the aisle, and even worse are the mass killings, which also have infected other countries but seem worse here at home. Please somehow calm the fury and hatred that drives these mass murderers to wreak their mayhem. As we sing in church every Sunday, let there be peace on earth.
Yes.
For this we especially thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for being on the show today. So, in closing, we challenge you to go out there to read to get inspired, write something inspiring, and share your creation with the world. For when you've touched one life, you've touched 1,000. Thanks for joining us on Inspirational Journeys, and have a blessed day.